Hello again. Hello. We are back and we are talking about animal protein staples. So in the last lesson we went over generally what animal protein staples are as opposed to plant protein or plant staples. In the last lesson we went over a lot of the plant staples from all the different continents of the world, and here we're going over animal protein staples. So, your basic animal protein staples are your beef, your chicken, your seafood and fish, and your pork. And what we're going to go over here in this lesson is all about beef. Okay, so what we have with beef, all beef comes from cows. And when you have a male cow, it's called a bull. And when you have a female cow, it's called a heifer. And now only male cows have horns. So the picture of the cow you see here, he has horns, and that's a male cow. So what we get in terms of animal protein staples is beef. And what is beef? It's a type of uh, muscle of the cow, and there's all different kinds of cuts of beef, and it provides us with very high protein food source. So here I want to give you just a little bit of an idea of what kind of food we get from beef. Okay. A couple fun facts about beef and about the cows that they come from is that cows have four stomachs. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Cows have four stomachs, and they are herbivores. They eat only grass or grains. They don't eat any meat themselves. So they're not a predator like a lion or a tiger. They are a grass eater or a grain eater. And they have four stomachs to break down all those grasses. Americans, we consume about 15 billion hamburgers per year. So, sorry, 50 hamburgers, 50 billion hamburgers per year. And now that's a lot of hamburgers. So, next time you're eating a hamburger, just remember you're contributing to the 50 billion burgers that we eat per year. And in the last lesson, we went over some interesting things about beef, which one of is that one cow can produce about 1,000 burgers. So that's a lot of burgers, 1,000 burgers to get to your 50 billion burgers per year that Americans consume. That's a lot of cows. So if you go back to our lesson on big food and on industrial farming and ranching, the numbers of cows that we have in order to supply this demand for beef is very high. Um, there's hundreds of different kinds of cow breeds that produce beef, and then the most popular ones are Angus, Hereford, and Wagyu. You've heard of Wagyu. A Japanese Wagyu steak can go for over $200 a pound. That's one of the most expensive beefs on the planet. And all different beefs come in all different grades. We'll come back to this slide in a minute and go over some of the different kinds of beef. But you saw this when we discussed industrial ranching and how the U.S. Department of Agriculture grades meat. It grades it basically on the amount of fat in it. And so your select meat has very little fat, it's less expensive. Your choice meat here in the middle has a little more fat, a little more expensive. This is basically what you would get in the grocery store, this middle one here. And then prime, it has a lot of fat usually, and that's what you'll get at high-end restaurants, hotels, this kind of thing. About 4 to 5% of the cattle in the United States are prime beef cattle. We talked about beef also when we talked about local ranches, local family ranches, and where you can source your beef from. So there's lots of interesting things when we're talking about beef. Back to this slide. So I wanted to go over just a few of the cuts of beef that you might see on your plate or in the grocery store. Over here on the right hand side, we have a roast. This is just a big roast. You would put it maybe in the crock pot or in the oven and roast it and slice it up. We have next we have flank steak, which are thin steaks with not a lot of fat in them. Ground beef can be made into burgers. We have ribeye that has a lot of fat in it. Ribeye steaks have a lot of fat and they're very tasty. A lot of people really like ribeye steaks. There's stew beef. There's beef filet. You've heard of filet mignon. It's a not too fatty but very soft part of the cow. we have a whole lesson all on its own, all about beef. But here I just want you to get a introduction to what your protein staples are, and one of the main ones being beef. Up here on the top, you might have been at a restaurant and you order, say, a burger or a steak, and the waiter will ask you, how would you like that cooked? And this is a little chart to show you what they mean by that, which is the levels of doneness here. So you'll have rare, which is this picture up here at the very, very top, where it's still very red and very rare, not very done. Then you'll have medium rare, which is a little more done. Then you'll have medium, which is a little more done, medium well, a little more done, to well done, which is where it's cooked straight through. So a lot of the more expensive cuts of meat are tastier when they're a little more rare, and some of the other cuts of meat you'll want to have cooked all the way through, like ground beef and stew beef and things like that. So lots of different fun things to cook. We'll get into that in Pillar 3 in Sizzle Kids. We'll get into all about cooking meats. But here's a little bit of a rundown on your protein staple, your animal protein staple of beef. And here is the grades of your beef, and this will give you a really good start to learning all about beef. Next, we are going in the next lesson. We're going to talk a little bit about chicken, about your animal protein staple that is chicken. All right, I'll see you over there.